Beekeepers, sometimes you take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. There's 3 colonies here I just brought back from a different apiary, and I hadn't checked them in a week. When I took them down there, a couple weeks ago, they were thriving and I thought they would be just fine. And I checked them a week later and they were okay. But this morning when I checked them, they were really small, and it is April 23rd, I do believe. Yeah, it's April 23rd, and we're going to have some 20s again next week. And they've already been through some 20s, and I don't think they would handle anymore because every time they get chilled a little bit, some of them die. The outside cluster dies. So what I'm going to do, when I took them down there, I made sure they had enough honey. I gave them a medium with frames of honey, and I know the colonies were they filled up about half the deep, and I thought, okay, they're large enough they can handle the rest of the deep. And I didn't want to give them 2 deeps, of course, because they weren't ready for it. And I figured maybe a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe they'd be ready for the bottom deep. But they actually went backwards. So that's why I say 3 steps forward, 2 steps back on these 3 colonies. At least I didn't find dead outs. So I'm going to open this one here, or I've opened it. I'm going to take some frames out and I'll show you. Oh, I just got to mention, this right here is Ap23 from the Dot, and the bees don't seem to care for it all that much. Well, here they've taken some of it, but once the trees start putting out pollen, they really don't want it. So, and I couldn't get the bees to start early with this. So if I'm waiting for the trees, what's the point even buying this and putting it in the hive? There's no point to it. Same thing with Man Lake's Ultra Bee. I had the same results. I'm gonna start buying Better Bees Global Winter Patties again at the end of this year. I'm gonna buy some from the colonies next winter because I have been very unsuccessful trying a substitute. The Global Winter Patties have 15% actual real pollen in it. You really can't call it a substitute. It's got real pollen. These do not. Bees know that there's nothing real here. And the other thing is they're not using non-GMO products. This is GMO, and I keep telling you guys, GMOs full of toxic chemicals. The food you eat is full of toxic chemicals, and I'm sure if you were to analyze this, had a lab analyze this, they'd find toxic chemicals in this. Okay, that's why the bees don't like it. Simple fact. Okay. All right, I'm gonna take some frames out. Okay, I took out all the frames that had no bees on them. And here is a good deep frame of honey. If I didn't have a good deep frame of honey, I would probably take one off the medium and give it to them. And I have my insulated fillers over here. But first I clean up the side of the hive, scrape it, make sure there's nothing protruding, keeping that insulated filler from making contact with that wall, because I don't really want bees to go in behind this. And the other thing I'm gonna do before I separate frames, I've had some muscaldings this spring. I'm gonna put in a queen excluder at the bottom. I'm gonna put one in the top, and I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back in there, even though the bees aren't using it, in case we get a bunch of rainy weather and they can't get out to get actual pollen. It's better than nothing. I'll give them credit for that. It's better than nothing. That's about it. So I got my queen excluders here, and I'm gonna pick this up and I'm gonna put queen excluders underneath it. Oh, and by the way, the bottom of a hive, the bottom board, will tell you a lot about what's going on in a colony. See, they are using that substitute. Here's pieces of it left over. Then look at all the dead bees. It's always sad to see. This right here, I cleaned this out a couple of weeks ago. So that's how many bees have died in just the last 2 weeks. Okay, I got it in the queen excluder, and I'm leaving room for me to slide the frames over. I love doing hive inspections. I love looking at the bees, figuring out what's going on, because you never know what you're going to find. That's the reason why I do this all year long. I do them inside my room during the winter, because I couldn't go all winter without actually messing with bees. And these bees are aggressive. So I'm gonna take it real easy. Well, I would do that anyway, but there's one frame, see? No queen. I would imagine she'd be on the center. That's normally where she is. There's the queen. And they're doing better than that other colony that I checked. They could probably survive without a frame of brood, but I'm going to probably give them one anyway, just because they're further behind than the other colonies. So I'm going to give them 4 frames. It's a little early in the day for me to be pulling out brood from the larger colonies, so I'm going to put 4 frames in here, put in my other insulated filler, just so I don't have it in the way. It's in here, and then push these together like this. And then I know that I'm going to get in here again, so I'm just going to put the substitute here. And then when I get that frame of brood, I'll probably pull this out. Yeah, I know I'll pull this out and I'll slide this over. And I'm going to put a cage, a frame cage over that queen. Got my frame cages here. I'm going to put a frame cage over that queen. I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to do it later, just before I want her to keep laying eggs everywhere. Before I put in that frame of nurse bees and brood, I'm going to put a cage over that queen and put that frame in the center and then put this back in. So basically it'll be a nuke again. And then I will take the other queen excluder. This is why I never use queen excluders when I have substitute patties in here, but I don't have a choice. It's hard to get it to seal up sometimes. And then I'll put the hive cover on it. Simple as that. Okay? Thank you.